Greetings, Poe fans. Welcome back to Review Morgue. I am Carmen Bolden.
And I'm Jeannie Smith.
And we are
the
Potastic 2.
Why do you slow down after you start saying it? It's like you're stopping.
I guess I'm just trying to enunciate. Maybe that's what it is.
Well, that's okay with the enunciation. Just don't stop.
I know.
Okay.
It's dramatic pause. It's
dramatic
a silent
pause.
Since we're still in silent film land.
Yeah.
So, and speaking of silent film land, tonight we are going to talk about the fall of the House of Usher from 1928.
Dun, dun, dun. Yes, right. The year before the fall of the stock market. But okay.
Yeah, hey, that kind of unfortunately pairs nicely.
Exactly, yes. Unfortunately.
And so the director of this film was named Jean Epstein. And he was born in 1897 and he died in 1953. And as you can see by the wearing of the beret, it was a French adaptation.
Yeah, very interesting. So, yeah, if you don't read or, know anything about France or French language when you watch this, you better have Google Translate on standby.
Yes. And just to let our viewers and our listeners know, you can find this film on Tubi for free.
Yes, exactly. And also for those of us who maybe doesn't have the patience to translate the French cue cards like I didn't, you can find a digitized version on YouTube that someone painstakingly redid it and digitized and redid all the cards into English subtitles.
Oh, that's awesome. Because I, unlike Jeannie, sat there and paused it and did Google Translate. And some French words I can pick up because I can read Spanish better than I can speak it. So some words are very close to each other. And so I was able to pick up some of the, I guess, feeling sometimes, but then there were some words I had no idea. So I went ahead and did Google Translate just to make sure I knew exactly what was happening, besides using context clues while I was watching the film. And so Jeannie did the smart way.
Yeah. I mean, I could have done this. I could have done it that way too. I could have figured it out on my own because Spanish, like French, they are a Latin-based language, so they do share some of the same nuances when it comes to the wording. But at the same time, it's a little bit more than Spanish. Now with Spanish, they usually put the adjectives and everything after the nouns. So that kind of makes it going, what? Can't understand that, but But either way, it's a very romantic language because it's from the Romans. And so seeing it on the cue cards is wonderful, even though you may not be able to read it.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful.
It causes something and adds something to the film itself.
Exactly. And so the French name for this film is La Chute de la Maison Usher. And earlier, Jeannie said, bless you.
Exactly. Bless you. La Chute de la Usher. It's like, okay, sure.
Yes.
I got Usher. That's all I got.
That's right. That's all you got to know is Usher, not the singer. So, all right. So we've talked a little bit about the director, and most of all the other films, I think all of the other films that he did, which was not a lot compared to other directors. They were all French films, but
Mm-hmm.
this one is the, to my knowledge, Jeannie, correct me if I'm wrong, is the only one of Poe stories that he did.
Yes. This one, if I remember correctly, it was alluded that this was the only one that he wanted to do.
Yes. Okay.
That he was in, enthralled with the aspect of the romantic, because that's one of the things we're going to talk about, that he did his own kind of literary, what's the word I'm looking for?
License,
Yeah, he
maybe.
took
Yeah.
literary license on changing the main thing about the story from the way Poe wrote it to how
Yes.
he did it and interpreted it.
Yes. And because of that, he had an assistant director. His name was Luis Bunol. Is that right, Jeannie?
Buna,
Bunal. Thank you.
Buna, yeah,
Yes.
Buna.
And during filming, he did not agree with what the head director changed in the story, and we don't want to give too many spoilers.
Right.
And so he quit the film. So he stopped working with Epstein because he disagreed and wanted to keep Poe's story as close as Poe wrote it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, he did an adaptation that wasn't horrific by
Hmm.
any means, but it wasn't true to the story, in my opinion.
It
Kit,
definitely gave a different vibe to how you were perceiving it, I thought.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a very dark, very
Hmm.
gothic version
Yes.
in itself, because of the way they portrayed it. And it being French, they put it in a French countryside. They did the French swing of putting it in a castle.
Which, if you can see the
Yeah.
picture behind me, this is a picture from the film, and this is the House of Usher. And so you
Hmm.
can see it's definitely more of a French castle, and a lot of, yeah, woodsy areas, meadows, lakes, things like that. There was
Hmm.
even the scene with we're going to talk about the characters in just a minute. But we're going to talk about setting first. But one of the characters, the in Poe's story, the unreliable narrator or the unnamed narrator, however you'd like to call him, goes into a bar tavern to get a drink and, like, I guess stop in to see where he needs to go to find the House of Usher, like how to get there, like by carriage or
Hmm.
whatnot. So.
Yeah, he stops in to get someone to take him to the House of
Hmm.
Usher.
Yes.
And what I think is very interesting is he has him read the letter that he received from Roderick.
Yes.
And he
Yes.
takes out this magnifying glass. I mean, this big old, it looks like one old big old scientific. Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. That he unfolds, and it's so dirty. That's what's like
Yes.
killing me, is when
I
he
know.
unfolds it. I'm like, how can you see anything? It's so dirty that you
Oh
can't
yeah.
even see through it. And then what's so funny is when he finishes, right, pushing it over the letter and reading it, and
Hmm.
before he starts to close it back up, he pretends to wipe it off, like clean it, but he
Yes.
doesn't even touch the thing. He just
I
goes through the
know.
motion, and then when he starts to close it, it's just as dirty as it was before he cleaned it.
I
I'm
know.
like,
It was just, it was, yeah, that was insane. And
yes.
so and then when the carriage driver, like, gets close to the house but not
Hmm.
quite there, he lets him out, and kind of it very much reminded me of Dracula, kind of like, I don't go any farther because I don't trust what's going on in the House of Usher.
Yeah, it definitely has the Dracula vibe
Yes,
from
especially with the
beginning to end.
sets.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly, with the sets, and it's also got a British feel to the set,
Yes, I agree. Yes, it definitely
like to the
does.
Doctor Who-ish
Mhm.
vibe and stuff. But one thing about the tavern scene, and if I'm not mistaken, I can't remember the guy's name,
Okay.
but another director who directed Napoleon, the silent film Napoleon,
Okay.
and is married to the lady actress who plays Madeline Marguerite. What's her name?
Let's see.
You have it written down.
I think it was,
Hold on, I think I can bring it up here.
I believe it was Gauche. Gosh.
Gantz. I think it's Gantz.
Yes.
Marguerite
Yes.
Gantz, I think
I
is
thought
her
I
name.
thought I might mispronounce it. Yeah, go ahead, Jeannie.
Yeah. He, her husband appeared in the as a minor cameo in the short bar sequence
Mm-hmm.
at the beginning, and his name was Abel Gantz.
Okay.
And he was the filmmaker for Napoleon, which was
Oh,
another big French film at that time. And I'm like, it's French and it's Napoleon, of course.
yeah.
Uh,
It should definitely be popular at that
yeah.
time.
So Madeline's actress, Marguerite Gantz, her husband actually was in the film with her, but
Okay,
only for a
that's a
short
neat little
cameo.
tidbit. Yeah.
And so, but yeah, and that's kind of goes along with like what we talked about the last time with the silent films and the actors of that time. They
Mm-hmm.
were so few that they kind of stuck together. They would show up in other films and
Yeah.
those kinds of things together, whether it be the director, the
Right.
actors, the writers, they were all playing a certain part because this is back before film, this was filmmaking in, infancy.
Absolutely. And it kind of reminds me of like, because they're putting in more famous or more well-known actors or
Mhm.
film, directors, producers or whatever, as cameos in here. It's just like those films within the last probably 30-ish years where they'll advertise, maybe it's like a thriller or a suspense type movie, and an actor will, you know, somebody that's very well known that you really like and is very popular, and you go to see the movie mainly because of that actor, and then within like 15 minutes. And it's like, that's why I came to the movie. And so
Yeah.
I wonder if they did that to help promote the films back then, because with it being such a new media, you know,
Yeah. And they probably did it to help each other out too
yeah,
in the industry because being, very hard industry at that time, they had to fight for every little bit if they wanted to make any kind of films.
yeah,
They had to fight with each other to try to get the backing. And it was much worse than it would be now because in today's age, we have so many different main production companies and even smaller production companies that
hmm,
really don't have to fight as much because they have their own sponsorship, they have their
yeah,
own backing with whether it is the actors turned directors and using their own money to make their films and stuff like that. And
yeah.
one of the things that you were talking about when you were talking about cameos that brought up my thought process was the Marvel movies, that when Stan Lee kept popping in
Oh yeah,
on
and
certain things, and
yeah,
it's like,
Hitchcock
well,
was
he
we
was
had a
the reason.
yeah, Hitchcock had a cameo in most all of
Mm-hmm.
his movies, and there's another famous director, for the life of me, it's escaping his name. It'll probably come to me later in the episode, but that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just making that cameo, and it's really neat. But kind of going back to the sets, so we alluded to Dracula because,
Mm-hmm.
if you look at this behind me, it looks like this, you know horror castle in one of the Universal Pictures, movies, and almost like reminiscent of Frankenstein as well. But
Mm-hmm.
then when they go into the house and you see the sets and just the gothic feel, and there's some stairs, it's definitely cleaner than Dracula's castle,
Well,
but
that we know, yeah.
yeah, and it makes you feel like you're just being pulled into this, 1930s Universal Pictures horror movie. And it's brilliant and beautiful. It's just, I love that part of it.
Yeah, you can definitely tell the difference between the budgeting and the actual filmmaking, because
Hmm.
the outside scenes at the very beginning with the narrator, or Alan as he's
Yeah.
called.
Oh, yeah. His name is Alan. Yes.
Yeah.
And it's
And
spelled
when he's on his
Allan.
yeah, as he's on his way to try to find Roderick's house, and he stops in the bar, and then it shows the differing of where that's actually outside with the filmmaker or the film cameraman following him.
Hmm.
So but then when they get to the castle, you can tell it's a sound stage. So
Yes.
then from then on, everything takes place in the sound stage for the most part. It's
Yes.
very few things that are outside after that. Or if they are showing outside production,
Hmm.
it's a very bad miniaturized version.
Yes, and Jeannie and I were talking, and it's really kind of coincidental. Jeannie didn't really do this on purpose, but I was looking for, once I found this picture, I was looking to see if Zoom had a blue tint. And Jeannie's picture with Review Morgue, this series of episodes we're doing, it
Mhm,
has the blue tint, and all of the outdoor shots had a blue tint. It was like you go into the house black and white, just like behind me, and then
mhm.
outdoors everything had a blue haze over it. And I know Jeannie's going to explain why that is.
Yeah, most of the time with these types of films, since they're old. I mean, 1928, that's
Almost 100
what, almost
years.
100 years. Yeah, I was like,
Yeah,
oh my Lord, that's almost 100 years.
I know,
But
it's
sometimes,
crazy.
this is before any kind of Technicolor or anything like that. So the digitization between taking the black and white film, like the 35 or 25 millimeter canister film, and redoing it and digitizing it, sometimes can cause a hue type of effect.
Okay.
And blue is one of those that kind of has comes up. Like if you've ever seen or taken back, I don't know how many people might be old enough to remember this. Probably a lot of us that's
Yeah.
following along with us.
Yes.
But the old Polaroid wrapped film, that when you could take it and pull it out and
Hmm.
put it up to the light, you could see the negative.
Yeah.
And sometimes, according to how you could place it with the lighting, it would have a little bit of a blue tint to it.
Okay, yeah, I do remember that. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So, and a lot of that is just a kind of a shading or a hue type of effect to it. So
Mhm.
that's why when I was watching it, I'm going, that kind of looks like the strings of a Christmas, the lights you'd put on a Christmas tree.
Yeah,
And why
it
is it
did.
blue? And then you could see
Absolutely.
the fire itself would have, and I'm like, yeah, these are digitized a little
Mhm.
ambiances. These are not black and white versions.
Yeah,
So,
I found it very intriguing because I was like, "Okay, hold on a second." And
mhm,
I think I even at the beginning, when I realized the difference, that I kind of rewound it to just look and make sure I wasn't seeing things. And I was like, "This is pretty cool." And then you and I had this conversation later.
mhm.
So I thought that was neat.
And I love the addition to the music, the additional music that I actually
Yes.
found a few where people have made orchestrated, I can't say that word.
Orchestra,
Um, in
orchestra.
I'll just say instrumental. We'll just call them
Okay.
instrumental,
Okay.
using orchestras that they have
Yes. Yes.
created songs to match with this movie.
Yeah.
Whereas, remember, in the silent films, they didn't have the music, but they did have orchestras when they played them in the big
Theaters.
screens, in
Yeah.
the theaters and stuff. So I
Mhm.
love how that now you can get the orchestras
Yes.
type ambiance to it while you're actually watching the silent film. Now, I will say that the one thing I loved most about this film versus the one that we reviewed first is that the cue cards or story cards were much more suited.
That yes, they were
To
aligned
the
with the
story.
scenes.
Yeah.
Yes, because I wondered with that first one that we watched and reviewed if we were going to have the same kind of situation. But I'm like,
Mhm.
well, the other one was American, this one's French, so let's see. And so when I started doing my translations, I was like, this is great. It's telling exactly what's going on, and had some dialogue quotes as well, which I really enjoyed that too.
Absolutely. And the thing of it was is that yes, you still have to depend a lot on the body language to tell the
Yes.
story.
Hmm.
But this time, not only just the body language of the actors, you are getting a little bit of the story visually with the cue cards,
Hmm.
and with the music is helping you tell some of the story too.
Yeah, absolutely. And, also, one of the other things I wanted to mention about the sets was, to me, one of the notes I wrote down, it was like triumphantly gothic because it was overly gothic. And it made me even think of reading, even beyond Poe, other gothic novels and poems and things. And the other part of this too, with some of the scenes, especially the outdoor scenes, where they would have some interesting animals added in, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But it just the way they put there was one scene where it was they're showing all these trees and the wind, and then they're showing water, with the waves moving back and forth in this lake, and then back to the different trees, and in the forest and this meadow, and it was just very surrealistic. And so I even kind of made a note that Salvador Dali would be very proud of this surrealism. And
Mhm.
the fall of the house, the fall of the House of Usher itself has some very surrealistic elements. And so I really felt like Epstein paid a huge homage to surrealism here, and which really hadn't, um, taken off at this point, because Salvador Dali was born in 1904, so he would have been 24 when this film came out.
Yeah, so he was barely in his infancy for his surrealistic world.
Yeah, and he had started doing art at this point, but all of the things that he's truly and truly known for had not happened yet. So,
Right. And
yeah, so,
speaking of the architecture and the Gothic type of style,
uh-huh.
um, it was very reminiscent to the Baroque style because
Yes.
you had at one point, you have the armored, what do you call them? The
Armored.
statue type, the whole full body armor, the jouster,
Oh, like the
the
knights, the
thank
knights in
you.
the armor. Yes, 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 yes,
Could not
yes.
think of the name, but
Yeah.
you have that one part, like at the towards the end when things are happening, you have the knight that's
Mm-hmm.
standing there, and then like and some of the other things for the setting was got that Baroque type style in my head that I thought of Beauty and the Beast,
Oh,
because
yeah,
it's got
yeah.
that French type of feel to it also.
Yes, I totally agree with you. And the knight, because he's wearing the chain mail and
Mhm.
all of the, just the everything. And exactly what you think of in some kind of creepy old castle is having that knight in shining armor.
Mhm. And one
Absolutely.
of the things with this film, I will say, it was definitely more visually appealing, not just with the additional story cards and the
Mhm.
body language, but the emoting of the actors.
Yes. Oh my
That
gosh.
was so well done. Just the Marguerite, just standing there. But even on film, you could see how she was portraying her body language to the point of where you could feel it coming off of the screen to you.
I totally agree. The I don't know what style of acting that would be because I don't know if they really
It's
classified it when they were
method.
making method. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's what I would think it would be. You could tell exactly how she felt the entire time throughout her
Mhm.
character's, you know, appearances.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it just, um, and I guess it also had to do with that this was more towards an actual Poe story,
It,
whereas
mhm,
Thou Shalt Not Kill that we reviewed first
right.
had the Poe-esque and had the little bit of the story of a Poe story,
Yeah.
but it wasn't built towards something to pay an homage to Poe, even though Epstein, he kind of took his own liberties
Yes, he
with
did.
certain things, but he did keep for the storyline of not really the storyline, but the respect towards Poe's writing.
He definitely did, and the actor who played Roderick was Jean Debucourt, and
Devonport, yeah.
his emotions were as good, if not better, than the Marguerite who played Madeline.
Yes, he
His
did a great job because I swear he reminded
Yes,
me of Doctor Who also.
he did, and he had some crazy eyes, which I loved.
Mm.
It made it even better, and it fit
Mhm.
with the his eyes especially grew more crazy as his downfall of his character
Mhm.
throughout the story played on. And so it really you could weave a story through his emotions and his eye movements and things like that. And so that's what drew me in was the way his eyes were. And he
And
was
you can definitely see the change that 20 years in filmmaking can make
yes,
from 1909 to 1928.
yeah,
There was a big jump just in that 20 years of how they used the film, how they understood it better, how they learned how to play it better, that kind of thing.
yeah.
So that was definitely a 100% improvement.
Yeah, and in this story, so Roderick was an artist and he was painting a portrait of Madeline. And it was just out in the open, like in the middle of this big room. And it reminded me a lot of some of the sets of the Corman films. The one in particular I'm thinking of was I think it was actually Ligeia, which I'm about to talk about in just a second. But it was just like this big open space, and then you have this, his easel, and you've got this painting, but it's already in this Baroque frame, and it's got just this beautiful, lovely portrait of Madeline. And then all of a sudden, Alan, the narrator, is talking with Roderick, and then all of a sudden it kind of pans to another portrait because it explains it in one of the title cards that all of the male ushers are kind of like required to paint a portrait of their wives. And so, and I'm giving a little bit away here, but not
Mhm.
necessarily. But what was very interesting was they showed a nameplate on that portrait, and it said Ligeia, and I'm pretty sure it said 1797. And so Epstein pulled in another story. And so apparently one of Roderick's other family members, maybe it was his mother, was Ligeia. So I thought that was
Mhm.
really cool.
Yeah, and then it made it even more interesting because of the painting aspect of it, the
Yes.
bringing in the oval portrait into
Yes.
play.
Yes.
Because one of the things that the story plays out is the painting has a very dark turn to
Yes.
Madeline's world.
It
Even
does.
though he's painting the love of his life, pretty much,
Yeah.
she's not feeling it.
No, and the portrait is feeling it, where you
Uh-huh.
almost have to keep looking at it to see, is it alive or not?
Yep, it is.
There's
And
a lot of
it's,
suspense there, and we're not going to tell you whether or not
mm,
that's true or false.
yeah, it's just one of those literary licenses that
Yeah,
Epstein has taken in the story.
yeah,
So,
but
but it also pays allusion to the oval portrait and
yeah,
Ligeia.
and one
Then
other one.
yes, and then later there is the, well, it was for me. I mean,
Okay.
I got the allusion to the Telltale Heart
Yes, I would
towards
say
the end.
I did not pick up on that one as much.
Mhm.
So, Jeannie, talk about that one, and then we'll talk about the other one that we both picked up on too. That
Well,
is later too.
yeah, I mean, but you get to the point towards the end of the film where
Hmm.
Roderick is has pretty much a mental breakdown,
Yes.
and you feel it, you see it, and he just keeps thinking that, oh, something happened. Maybe, I still hear her. Maybe I still
Mhm.
feel her.
Yeah.
It's that thing, kind of like the heartbeat from the Telltale Heart, only a little bit different. He's
Yeah.
still hearing things.
And again, Epstein keeping that Roderick had a very large, like hypersensitivity to sound, that was also kept very
Hmm.
pristine for the movie as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but that was the other illusion that I got, and I don't want to give too much more away that
Yeah.
other than just that, because it becomes very prominent, at least to me, towards the end of the film.
Oh yeah, and for those of our viewers and our listeners who have read The Fall of House of Usher, you'll understand what we're talking about. There's one other illusion that for me was really a big thing, and Alan read a whole lot in the background while Roderick was painting, and he was either
Mhm.
doing research or he was reading some type of literature. And one of the things he was studying about was mesmerism. And
Yes.
so we're not going to give away too much about that, but Poe wrote Mesmeric Revelation. He wrote the Facts in the Case of M. Valdemar, which had a
Mhm.
heavy, heavy hand in mesmerism. And so, Poe studied that for a while, and that came through in his writing at that time.
But there's actually two actual other allusions to Poe's works in here. I
Hmm.
don't know if you caught them or not, but there
Which
was
what?
the pit and the pendulum, because
Yes,
there's
I for
actually a part in there
yes,
to
yes,
where you're going, where did we go? Why are we suddenly at the Spanish Inquisition? What the
yes,
heck? What? And then to go along with the Telltale Heart, part of the reason that I got the illusion of the Telltale Heart was because of the illusion to premature burial.
yes, absolutely. This film really, even if Epstein didn't try, he did.
Epstein.
Yeah,
Epstein. Stop
yeah.
calling the poor man Epstein.
Well, it's spelled EP.
No, it's spelled UP.
Where I was doing my research, it was EP.
No, I mean, yeah, I got UP. That was his Jean Epstein.
Yes,
So
on because yeah, on
yeah,
IMDb it says Jean Epstein.
that's weird because
It
when I
is.
first saw it, I was like, it spells it on the actual film UPSTIN.
Oh, weird. That is really
That's
weird.
why I was like, why do you keep saying? Because I
Maybe
swear it's UP.
okay, because maybe it's a French English translation kind of thing. That's
It could
interesting.
be,
Okay.
but that's why I was like, on the film, I'm pretty sure it's spelled UP. Well, I'll have to go back and look at that now.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
we need to know,
but I was
Jeannie.
like, that's just weird. But like you, it could just be the French and the English translation type of
Yeah,
thing. But okay.
absolutely.
Anyway,
Yes, go
so,
ahead. Yes.
but barring that, I'll just say that It's not Poe's Fall of the House of Usher, but it is.
Yes.
That's the only way I can really describe it. It
Yes.
reminds me of a 1928 version of the Netflix film that just came out, the miniseries.
Yeah, you can kind of think about
Not
it like
as
that.
not as in depth as the Netflix film, which by the way, if you happen to want to find the remake where someone has digitized it and created the English subtitles like I did, very interesting about that is that when you go on YouTube and you start looking for these particular things that are alluded to the fall of the House of Usher,
Mm-hmm.
most all of them started popping up 10 months ago,
That's
around the same
interesting.
time when Netflix posted that miniseries, The Fall of the House of Usher. All of
Okay.
these all of these silent films or all of these renditions to Poe's Fall of the House Usher suddenly started making comebacks, so to say.
That's really kind of neat because
Mhm.
it, to me, when especially this just shows the proof in the pudding that when new Poe works come out or anything that's heavily added into, like Poe things added into, like the Wednesday series,
Mhm.
it's a resurgence. It's again keeping Poe alive forevermore. Just, I mean,
Yeah,
again and again. That's
yeah,
really
and it
cool.
and even though this was a French director and it was a French based rendition,
Hmm.
I will have to say it paid great homage to Poe, since
Yeah.
Poe loved to allude things to French, you know, the murders of the Rue Morgue and those
Yes.
kinds of things. So, French was the language that he spoke fluently and he
Right.
loved.
Yes.
So it kind of went hand in hand.
It definitely did. But because of the things that Epstein
Yeah.
took
Once,
license to change, it wasn't enough for the assistant director to stay with even those other homages to Poe. And I
yeah,
think
he
that's
just didn't
unfortunate.
like it.
Yeah, that he decided to leave. And I mean, he went on to make films as well, and work in the film industry. But it it's very interesting how all of those things play out. And to have I one thing I didn't read to see how in far into Bunal's career he was, but if he with him being an assistant director, if he was new in his career, to stand up for Poe and leave his job, that
Yeah.
takes a lot of gumption. I mean, and a lot of integrity. And I think that is should be applauded. That's just amazing.
Yeah, and it's very rare, but it happens when people do that.
Yeah,
They can't stand having well, they are artists, so you have to take that into effect too.
right, right.
So it's one of those things, and if they had the gumption to say, "Okay, I'm not going to take it," then I'm right there with them. Go for
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah. Poe
Okay,
for
so it
it.
is Epstein. I must have just read it wrong or something, but
Yeah,
yeah, it's
well,
Epstein.
I will say this, the font on the French title cards was a little bit challenging to read sometime because it was very loopy. And
Hmm.
the cursive font it was in was beautiful, but sitting a decent distance away, I sometimes had to pause longer or bring it back and look at it again. So it could have looked like a U, Jeannie. I mean, that honestly.
Well, I just it could have just been because it was Usher.
Yeah.
The U got superimposed. Who knows? I don't know. It was just I was
It,
going, okay. All
it's
right.
all good. And it's all good.
My
And
apologies. Okay,
oh,
Epstein.
No worries, no worries.
Okay.
And so again, we don't want to give a whole lot of spoilers out. There
Hmm.
were a few little oddities that, again, embedded with the surrealism. With there was some animals that showed up within some of the outdoor scenes. Now,
Yeah.
one other little, very slight nod was there was a cat that showed up at a certain point.
Hmm.
Did you see the little kitty?
Yes. Is that the one? Was it the cat, or I thought the narrator Alan
Uh-huh.
tried to get? Was that a dog he was trying to get to come toward him, or was that the cat?
It was the cat. It was the cat.
Yeah.
Yes.
I couldn't really see as close. At first I thought it was a dog, but then I'm like, yeah, when it ran away, I'm like, no, that's not a dog, that's a cat.
Yeah.
Because it was like, no, I'm not coming. You're not calling me like some kind of dog. I'm not a dog. But yeah, the cat shows up and Alan's trying to get its attention to come to him while he's standing there waiting. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. So we got the cat that shows up. Then we have the frolicking frogs
Yes.
because we can't
Yes.
figure out if they were frolicky frogs or if it was a mama frog carrying her baby frog on her
Right.
back.
Yes. And we'll
I
leave it at
literally
that.
don't understand why the frogs were there,
Yeah.
but to
I don't
show
know.
the low budget when there was an owl, I guess I'm using quotation marks. People can't see me, the air quotes when I
Owl.
say owl. Yes, because the feathers, they were blowing the feathers and stuff, but you could see it was stuffed.
Yes.
So it was a dead owl. But it was like, but it was a stuffed owl.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, all right. And I wondered why they didn't use a raven. But then I figured because of the
Yeah.
owl, it's a white owl. So they probably couldn't use a raven because nobody would see it, even with the fluttering feathers with the black
Right,
and white.
because it alluded to it was night, and so it was
Yeah.
like the moon, the bright light that was on the owl, it
Hmm.
was like kind of reminiscent of the moon and the owl being out at night. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that type of symbolism. But I'm like you, I still don't figure out why the frogs,
Yeah.
other than, oh, I'm not gonna say it because that's just
Well,
gonna be bad. World War I.
yeah.
Can you know where I'm going with that? What did they
I
call the French in World War I? The
don't
frogmen. They called them
oh,
frogmen.
okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I
Yeah,
don't know if that was the illusion, but that's what I
well,
got from it.
and I will say, I think if I remember correctly, wasn't that about the time the coffin showed up?
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
carrying someone,
Mhm.
that could be
Yeah.
that. That's what I'm thinking. Again, we're trying not to give you spoilers and we're trying to get you hooked to where you
Yeah.
want to go see all these things. So that's why we're
Yeah.
being a
So
little bit, what's the word?
yeah, we're helping to entice,
Yes,
and we're not trying to foreshadow too much, but
exactly.
we
Yeah.
definitely want your interpretation. That's what it is,
Yes,
because
yes,
each one of us had a different kind of interpretation on certain things. Now, some of it, because we're Poe people, we were like all over it because Alan, the narrator, when he's reading something, it's definitely reminiscent from the fall of the House of Usher. That's all I will
yes.
say.
Yes, absolutely. And that is very true to the story. And
Hmm.
that's a great part in the movie.
Exactly.
And I will also say too that I guess, well, that thought kind of went out of my head, but we're kind of, I think, Jeannie, at the point of categorizing our ravens and black cats.
Yeah,
Do you
or
want to go?
cause and hisses. Instead of cause and effect, it's cause and hisses.
Yes. Now, do you that sounds like hugs and kisses.
Exactly. See?
Oh my
It's
goodness.
cause and hisses.
So, would you like to go first, or do you want me to go first this time?
You go first this time. I went first
Okay.
last time.
So, I was thinking about it, like I've been thinking about it, but then, like, as we've talked, I went ahead and wrote it down just so I wouldn't change my mind. And so I'm going to go with these calls and hisses for the fall of the House of Usher, 1928, I'm going to give 4 raven calls and 3 black cat hisses. And the 4 raven calls, and I feel like I've scored it pretty high because I love the settings, the cinematography, the emotive acting that took place, and the elements of Poe that were added in, as well as keeping most of the story true. I would have given it less hisses if 2 very large elements that to me make the story that Poe wrote what it is were not, if that was kept true. And so I'm giving the 3 hisses because Epstein changed it, and to me there was no reason to change it.
Understood. I
Okay.
understood. And so with me, I'm going to be right there with you with the 4 cause.
Yay!
I also agree that it was great cinematography. Even though the French story cards were French, they still felt they stuck with the story.
Mm-hmm.
The acting, the actors, even though the literary license was a little bit more than I liked
Yes.
from Epstein, it was definitely good storytelling.
Yeah,
It made it interesting to watch, even with a
absolutely.
silent film. Although if they didn't have the music added into it, I probably would not have given as much.
Yeah.
I Because the instrumental really added to the body language and the story. Now, I'm
Yeah.
right there with you. I'm going to go with 4 hisses because this is the thing.
Ooh,
I got 4
Patty.
caws, but I'm going to go with 4 hisses because even though he stuck in some other stories and little jabs and stuff with other works of Poe, it was just a little too far out away from the story of the fall of the House of Usher
Okay.
for me to truly identify it as the fall of the House of Usher.
That's a fair assessment. Yeah.
So I'd say 4 cause, 4 hisses.
Okay.
It's a 4-to-4 ratio.
Okay. Yeah, it's very balanced, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you either love it or you hate it, or you're right there in the middle on the pendulum.
Yeah. Oh
You're
yeah.
just
Yeah.
you're
Way to be
swinging one
funny.
way or the other. Yeah, exactly. Can't help it. That's my punny. That's my Poe punny for the day.
Love it. Love it.
Mhm.
And it'll be interesting to see if any of the films that we are reviewing, we agree 100%. This is pretty
I doubt it.
close. I doubt
I
it
doubt,
too.
I doubt it, but there's
Oh,
always going to be something because of the literary license that
I-
most directors and writers and stuff take away from Poe's work because it's very
yeah.
rare. Even when we talked about Corman movies,
Oh, yeah.
they still were not 100% Poe. So,
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So the thought that went out of my head came back just now,
oh, the
and
beret caught it.
it's a good thought. It's a good thought.
Okay.
So we are challenging our viewers and our listeners, to hopefully enticing them to go out and watch these films that we're reviewing. And so if you do, come back on our YouTube channel or even Spotify and leave us a comment what you thought. Did you give your own caws and hisses? We'd like to know and see, if there were some things that you took away from the film more than we did. I think because to me, this is a learning experience that
Mhm.
Jeannie and I are on with reviewing these movies, and it's been, even though this is only our second one, this has been amazing. It's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's really interesting that you were looking at film in its infancy, and so very rarely do people go back. And I know not a lot of people love to watch black and white movies to begin with,
Very
but
true.
silent films in itself. I mean, I used to love to watch Charlie Chaplin films.
Oh yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, and all
He was
that.
amazing. Yeah.
So it would be interesting for people to come back and see if they saw some things, or they found some things, or they have their own little ideas about things in the film that maybe we missed.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Absolutely. And one other thing I was going to respond, Jeannie, that I meant to a minute ago, when you were talking about the music. And to me, if you, especially in these silent films, when you don't have any music at all, it's like a sixth sense is removed from the movie. Because I'm going to equate this to Jaws. If the dun 2 notes, and that's like a quote from a movie, dun, if that wasn't present in the movie, how suspenseful would it have really been? And so I think you made a huge, huge point about you got to have the music.
Exactly. I mean, even if you have the cue cards, you have the body language, you have it visually, it just needed that one little next step.
Yeah.
To entice your body and your senses to step up and say, whoa, that's cool.
Yeah.
And like you said with Jaws, dun, two notes, that's it. Yep. Dun. And you're going, oh crap.
It made the whole movie, and it's iconic now till today. So
yeah, and
that's my Jaws plug.
Exactly. Those things with Jaws, even though it was, you saw the shark maybe 3 times in the whole movie.
Yeah, it's very, very little, and almost like 3/4 in. So, and we're digressing from Poe, but it all wraps itself together. So
yes, because it just proves the point that Poe knows his prose. That brings us perfectly to the point of sense and knowing that you have to have everything engaged. You have to have the reader, your mind, your imagination, everything. Because even with just that music, we're building the visual in our head because we got that feeling.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And they actually just have instrumental music if you want to go out and look for it. That they have CDs just with the music to go with the film. So check that out if you want to.
Yes, and we will add links in our dialogue box, or whatever you want to call it, for you if you want to check out any of these things. And so we highly recommend taking a look at these films we're reviewing, because it just brings you closer to Poe.
Exactly. And so with our caws and hisses and all of our review, we love to say we'll see you next time and review more.
Yes, and we are
the Potastic
2. And we are
Poe.